could launch new servers. I was up till about 3 a.m. Thursday morning, getting that ready to go. Okay, we're all set. Thursday morning, two drudge links, simultaneous. Okay? Never. Okay? Servers were, again, we had reconfigured everything. We were ready to go. Servers were down again. So I spent, at this time, since we were reconfigured, it was very easy to make some changes. Got the servers up and running. Thursday was fine. Went to bed Thursday night thinking, okay, that's done. They're done with drudge for the week. That's it. Friday morning, top of the page on drudge. Okay? 5 drudge links in 4 days. Literally top of the page. Friday we were fine. Friday we had made enough changes where the only thing we had to tweak was, again, we were getting a little bit slow loading time. We changed the database server so that it could handle more connections. Been fine ever since. Okay? Weekend was fine. We were drudge linked this morning. Now I didn't touch the server at all today. The servers are set. They're able to handle plenty of connections. We're good to go. So we had 5 drudge links in 4 days, and in a week we've had 6 drudge links. Completely unheard of. I've been working with these kinds of clients for 8 years now, and I've never seen anything like this.
So is this the awesome way you built it, or is this some content?
Of course it's the awesome way I built it. It has nothing to do with me whatsoever. It's all, it's the...
Drudge is reading it.
Drudge likes it.
He's reading it.
I think support reading goes to your PayPal account.
Yes, absolutely. I am creative. So since I know I'm a little, again, still a little bit off topic here. I'm using Rackspace for the hosting here, and we've got a few clients on Rackspace now. We're using Rackspace Cloud servers, and what they allow us to do is very easily change configurations. I mean, we're able to change configurations within a couple of minutes if we need to. So this is currently running on 3 16-gig boxes that are load balanced, and then 1 4-gig database box. So the web servers are 3 16-gig boxes where you are using W3 total cache. So the load on the database server is very small. Even when we hit that 10,000 number, once everything was configured the way we wanted it, the usage on the boxes altogether was about 10%. So we could have gone up to 100,000, I think, if we needed to. You're not going to get to 100,000, but eventually we'll bring those 16-gig boxes down to about 8 gigs, and I think that's about the right balance, and we should be okay. What we changed on Wednesday night was we switched the drive to NFS, so that there's the 3 web servers. And then the database server is also a file server, so all 3 web servers are sharing the same file server. So that way we don't have, when they log in and upload a photo, it's all going to a shared storage space, so you don't have to sync files across the 3 web servers. They're all coming from the same file server. Now, one thing I asked Rackspace, and I just didn't know this, I said, well, if they're sharing the same file servers, don't you run into the same problem where you've got the connections, the amount of connections with each of the web servers accessing files has nothing to do with that. Web connections are different than file connections. It's much faster to access a file and go server to server than go out to the web. Am I saying that right? Shredder? Yeah.
It's true, yeah. You can still run into issues.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So, again, I had many discussions with Rackspace about what we're doing, configurations.
And how does WordPress see that structure? I mean, does it still see it?
Since it's NFS, they basically set it up. It's all symlinks, so WordPress it basically is fooled. It thinks it's just a regular server, even though it's writing out to a single NFS box. Rackspace with the cloud server is really easy to set up load balancing, really easy again to change servers around. And literally, if I want to make these 16-gig boxes into 32, I can click on them. I say change to 32. It can take them up to a couple hours to do it. So we typically won't do that during the drudge link period. But right now, the way it's set up is if I wanted to add a 4th server, I can do that within minutes. I have to manually do it, but I can do that very easily. Rackspace is not cheap. So this whole setup here, once we add in bandwidth, we're estimating it's going to be about $3,500 to $4,000 a month in hosting fees. For this time. What's that? You're right. They do need a business model. Not my problem. I built it. Anyway, so give you some context as to how this works. Any questions on what I talked about so far? Again, I realize this is a bit of a tangent. Okay. No. No. Although you don't need this much of for most sites, you're not going to need this much, bandwidth and hardware to run most medium-sized websites. That's a lot of traffic. Okay. So, what's that? Oh. Yeah. I mean, even cloud servers you can set up. The way they work is it's charged by the hour. So you can ratchet up your site if you know you have some sort of large traffic event. You can literally ratchet up your site just for a couple hours or the day, and then ratchet it back down because it is billed by the hour. So we're not going to be changing the servers for a while. We know what the monthly fee is going to be, but you can adjust as much as you need. So some of our other clients, we've got them on 2 gig boxes, and they're just fine. We've got another site called Bollock that we just switched over to Rackspace. It's running on a 2 gig box, and they're going to serve 1 million page views a month. So that's just fine, and that's not a very expensive system. It's a couple $100 a month.
Did you compare your hands?
I did. The reason I went with Rackspace specifically is their managed solution. So and again, I'm not trying to sell anybody on Rackspace. I'm just telling you about my experience. So, what's that? Anytime you set up a cloud server, anytime you set up a cloud server, you can choose managed or basically on your own. Managed is only $100 a month, so it's $100 a month no matter what system you add it to. And literally, you can lean on their system admins for anything. All of this stuff I talked about, I didn't really have to have much server experience. I just open up the chat window, I tell them what I need. It might take them a couple hours, but for $100 a month, they'll do everything for you. And it is really actually truly good managed support. Sometimes it can take a little bit longer if they get busy, but I don't need to have a system admin doing it. Backups, the way backups work on this site is you can have it actually back up the entire server as a server image on a regular interval, or the way we back up the database is we actually, and I'm going to get very geeky here, we have a cron script that runs that does a dump of the MySQL database, sends it into our Git repo on a nightly basis. So that's how we're doing our database backups. While I'm thinking about it, anybody else for pizza? So $5 for pizza. Let's get that ordered before it's too late. So go ahead and bring it up. And I'm going to ask Dave. I won't insult him this time to order the pizza for us.
And by the way, can I point out the sausage and mushroom?
Sausage and mushroom was a big hit. We'll do that again. So if you got $5, give it to Dave, and we'll order pizza here real quick. Sausage and mushroom. I got it. How many do we need? How many people are here? 2, 4, 10. So I'm thinking like 5 pizzas should cover us.
Okay.
I need one more. Shout it out. What else? Cheese? What? Okay, what else? Carnivore. All right, go for it. You want me to send it to you? All right. Thank you. Anybody else that didn't pitch in? What's that? All right. Thank you, Dave. So, I want to talk about our particular process and how we get a site like this made, and sort of how we go through our process with a client. And this is typical of most clients that we work with. So we do a very traditional 3 rounds of comps, get them over to the client, get their feedback, take that feedback, build that into the next round of comps so that we get them what they want. Not every client works exactly that way. Actually, most don't. But that's the structure that we try to stay in, and that's a very traditional design structure. So you can see my folder here. I don't think I have every round of comps, but we're using Assembla, which is our project management system. We'll post JPEGs up to the project management system, let them view them, and then give us feedback. And we'll get on a phone call or a screen share, and we'll discuss these to get as much feedback as we can at each round. I'm not sure why Photoshop's not working for me. Come on. Thank you. You're a big help, Doc. I think my canvas is off the screen somewhere.
I bet it is.
Yeah, window.
There it is. So we will take, we'll have an initial interview with the client. Basically, when my designer Karen, when she's interviewing them, and we've talked about this in the meetup in the past, but when she's interviewing them, she's asking them questions like, do you have any sites that you like? More importantly, do you have any sites that you don't like? What colors do you like? What of the sites that you don't like, we'll start to ask questions, what don't you like about these sites? Is it the colors, the fonts? Is it the general feel? What are the things you like and don't like? And we'll take all that feedback, and she'll come up with an initial comp. This is actually a 3rd version. I don't have the first couple of versions, but when we present a comp, we either present it with a logo, or on this particular client, they didn't have a logo, so we actually went through logo design first. Let me see if I have some logo design here. They've asked us to animate it. So they want it to look like a lighthouse, so that the light is sort of going around like this.
You know where that comes from?
The lighthouse?
No, the spinning light like that. That's from Grudge.
Yes, I know that. I'm aware. So when we're presenting logos, we actually we present them as a sheet, typically like this. So we'll give them. Oh, my screen's way behind here.
Sorry.
Come on. So this is actually a second logo sheet. I don't have access to the first one, but we presented several different options. And when Kieran's going through this process after we've interviewed the client, she literally it's freeform. She'll come up with 5, 6, 7 different versions of a logo, just trying different things, trying different font styles, trying different designs. You can see here, a lot of these are much different. There's the one that's close to what we eventually ultimately went with, but we go through this process with every client. So we'll actually start this basic and present the stuff, really talk through this stuff with the client. We spend a lot of time here to make sure we're getting them the design that they want. Once that's done and they pick a logo, we'll then take that logo and we'll form it into a page design. So this was a third, I don't have the first couple of iterations, this was a 3rd iteration site design where we started to present some layout. We had already interviewed the client at this point to know that they wanted a feature story and then 2 columns underneath that. They wanted some video. So what we're doing in this comp is presenting different story blocks so that they can see what some of the different options would look like. There's what a video block's going to look like. There's one without an image. Here's one with an image. Here's the feature story up top with a couple of different layouts. There's one with some related content. There's one with the photo on the side. So there actually are some different versions of each of these story blocks within the comp. So this way, we're actually achieving a couple goals. We're letting them see what full page time looks like, and they're able to comment on a specific story block as well, because each of those story blocks it was important to them, and they actually use those as part of their WordPress site. They have full control over the layout of the story by just choosing one of these story blocks. You can see here that we were still playing with fonts at this point. So the headline fonts are way different than what we ended up with. Even the body copy fonts are different, and all these things matter, especially when we're dealing with a newspaper style site. You get here above the hurricane photo, we've got a blocky font that we ended up scrapping, going with a whole different font. So these things were very important to the client, and we went through several iterations of just font choices. Ultimately, we ended up with a non-standard web font. I forget the name of this font, but we actually went out. We found some options for them of non-standard fonts we could go with, and this is a web font that we built in, to make it a little bit unique. So that's what we ultimately ended up with. And again, we go through several iterations to get there. What's that? I'll talk about that in a moment. So that's kind of how we get to this point. Is we go through all those iterations. We will get them to actually sign off on a final comp and say, okay, this is what we want. We've agreed to all these choices, and then we start building it. So me or any of the coders upstairs, we don't even touch any code or CSS or HTML until this part is done on purpose, because otherwise we're spending most of our time making changes in code when it's much easier for Kieran to just make some quick Photoshop changes, represent them. Sometimes changes are easier in CSS, and we will point those things out, and we'll let them know, hey, okay, we're done, we're 90% of the way there in Photoshop. Now it's easier for us to start building this, and we'll make a couple of those changes in code, and we'll actually educate the client as we go on those things. Making sense? Some other things that are subtle but important is things like headers. So more video here. More video, I'm going to show you this in a minute. More video is contained in an outline. There's an outline, and then there's a little gutter around more video, the gray area there. So each of those little design decisions become important because those all become CSS. I know it seems subtle, but those are actually things we point out with clients. So when we're on a screen share, we'll let them know, okay, these are some specific choices that we made. This is how it's going to look throughout the site. And we'll go through that whole process with them. These buttons, sorry, I'm just going to I'm going to talk a little about that. These buttons are important because it's a technical decision. Now to create these pieces, we have to take an image and layer it on top of each image. They're not going to, we don't want them to have to make an image with this overlay on top of it for each video that they post. We just want them to be able to upload an image to a WordPress post, and then we'll throw it. That's a technical consideration. And again, it's subtle. Those are the things that we're pointing out to the clients as we go. They're torturing kids next door. Once we're done with the home page, we'll typically then move on to an inside page. Sorry, it's getting loud. Yep. The contract price? On this particular project, the contract's already been signed. Yeah. We've spec'd out in our statement of work. There's 3 rounds of comps, and should it go over, then we have to discuss some overage charges. So that's laid out in the contract. This is what we're committing to: 3 full rounds of comps with discussion, and then we start building. And absolutely. Every client's different, but in this particular one, that's what we do.
In general, and you said 3 full routes on the word that says to me it's full.
Yep.
How many in each
We
round?
spec it out. The first round is always homepage. First round is always 2 or 3 versions of a homepage, okay? And we say that in our statement of work. Second round is revised homepage and a couple of inside page designs. Third round is final homepage, final inside page. And that's all we're doing. On this one, we did a homepage and a story page. Everything else that we built on the site is able to just sort of follow this lead. The story page, again, we're presenting very specific choices. We're presenting headline fonts, sub-headline colors, things like that, the share bar. And again, these things matter. These headers are a little bit different on the inside pages than they are on the home page, and those things matter. And we actually did have a lot of discussion about what makes those headers pop more. So those things all matter. Choices here, what these headlines are going to look like, whether they're going to have an image or not. All those things, again, really matter. And when we're building a comp like this, we put as much variation on the page as possible so they can start to see what these pages are actually going to look like once they get into production.
So the point is the comp is and you're telling them that you're going to comp how many pages on your existence way over this, and you can
Yeah, specifically for our design phase, we're committing to a homepage and inside page. That's enough to get us building, and then if we need something specific, usually that's going to happen in code. The About the Author box, again, that's important, and this was important specifically on this site because a lot of the stories they have, the authors want to remain anonymous. Some of them will have a photo, some of them won't. So there's actually some variation as to what happens here.
Some sort of a slideshow, and we will sort of mock up how the slideshow is going to look and animate and move, but that's about all the animation we're talking about. If you are doing some Flash, then, and the Flash that we've done in the past, I would be expecting to show iterations of the animation and how things are going to function within Flash. Does that help answer your question?
Yeah, sure.
Priscilla. Okay.
Don't you, excuse me.
Yeah.
Don't you price out your Flash separate?
When we do Flash, we price it out as a line item.
Yeah. I mean, there's so many things you can do with Flash, and it's a little stupid.
It really, again, that's all part of the, what was it?
I said,
He did it.
No, I said, I don't do Flash, but when I do.
I prefer Dos Equis. Again, all that stuff's going to be sort of line item in the statement of work. So the real part of why I wanted to show this is now that the Photoshop document is done, here's how I use these things. So Kieran, typically when she's presenting this stuff, and she's usually interacting directly with the client, or our production manager's interacting directly with the client, they're showing JPEG files, getting that sign off. Once they've got the sign off, then me or one of the other programmers actually gets the Photoshop layered file. And we start to cut up the site based on decisions that were made inside of Photoshop. We need that Photoshop file for very specific reasons, okay? And one of them is font sizes. I pull the font sizes right out of the Photoshop document, okay? And I can't do that in a JPEG. So when I'm working with Photoshop, one of the things I'll do is I will literally select the headline. I can see up there it's 119.93 points at the very top. 120 is what I'm going to go off of, and that's the point size I'm going to make it in CSS. Now, since I deal with responsive design, I'll actually draw that as a percentage. So I'll go off my base point size is going to be 14 points, and then I'll figure out what percentage 120 is of 14, and that's how I build my responsive design. So I actually use Photoshop as my guide for font sizes. And I use it throughout, so I'll do it for headlines, sub-headlines, and I'll pick it right out of Photoshop. And when I'm building it in CSS, I'll actually keep the web browser up next to Photoshop and look at the two to make sure that they're sort of lining up and comparing. It's not always a one-to-one, but that's how I use the Photoshop files to cut up the design for fonts. Okay. Colors, same thing. Okay. So she's gone with the red here. I'll actually pull up the color. I'll pull up the color color picker here and pull her hex color right out of Photoshop and just paste that right into CSS. So that stuff's important. This way I'm getting that one-to-one match with what she intended in Photoshop. Okay? Almost everything I do here in Photoshop, I'm basically using for either sizing or color. Okay, so she's gone with a very specific size with her background. And by the way, I'm using keystrokes, but I'm using the V key right now. I don't know what this tool is called anymore. The Move tool, I think this is. So the Move tool gives you a kind of a unique feature if you don't know this in Photoshop. And I know this isn't really Photoshop Meetup, but if I hold the Control key and then click on any element in Photoshop, it'll actually let me select the layer. That's the order of layers that I've just selected on. So the one, since I clicked this photo, if I click layer 77, I can actually see here in my layer palette that's the Herman Cain photo. Okay. And I've used the Command key to, I know all the little shortcuts just from over the years, but I've used the Command key to click there, and it gives me the marching ants exactly around the photo. So I use those sizes specifically to find out what sizes I should be doing inside of CSS. Hang on one second. So you can see now that I opened that up, my width is 899. I'm going to go with 900 because it's a little cleaner. That's sort of the width of the whole column that she's intending.
So you're not expecting the designer, whoever the designer is, whether it's to supply you with a style guide?
No. She does her stuff. I'll make a style guide. I make it just this exact way. I make it right out of Photoshop. Okay. So the couple of keystrokes I'm telling you are becoming really handy for finding sizes, colors, things like that, and especially this select tool, the Move tool. I use this constantly when I'm pulling elements out of Photoshop. So
what version of Photoshop is that?
What's that?
What version of Photoshop?
CS5, the latest, I think. I'm holding the Control key again. I'm just selecting the background. So now I can start to look at her background, and she's got a drop shadow happening. You see the white area here? Yeah, you guys can see that. So there's the white area blending on the gray here. So when I cut out that background, I'm actually going to cut this piece out as its own little graphic and use that as my background file. I'll do that in a second. But the most important thing is if you're doing this, use that Move tool because it'll save you a ton of time finding stuff. I mean, you can see here, Kieran's got a ton of layers. I mean, those are all the layers that are in this file. And I actually don't ask her to clean up much when she sends me her file. I just want her designing, doing her thing. I can figure it out from there. She doesn't have to. She does do a little bit of cleanup, and that's good. But finding stuff is much easier when you're using that little Move tool trick. Okay.
Thanks.
Sure.
Because I had that problem all the time.
Handing
a file is a disaster.
I'm sure we're all dealing with disaster files, and that's okay. This is a major time saver. One thing you have to keep in mind is it won't work if you've got a selection, and it's always hard to tell if you've got a selection or not. So before I choose Move tool, I use Command D, which is deselect everything. Okay, so I just click Command D. Now again, I'm clicking Control on this photo. And there's my pull down menu, so I can select that photo. So now I've got over here in the layers, I've got that photo selected. Okay, she's using a mask here, so to get the marching ants, I'm actually going to hold Command and click on the mask, which now gives me the marching ants around the photo, which I can see is 419 or let's say 420. Again, and I don't expect her to be exact. I really just want her going for it. I don't expect her to worry about numbers. I'll worry about the numbers. So we're gonna call this column 420. That's how I do my 960 grid. Close enough.
I like the numbers.
Okay. Let's see if there's anything more here.
Question.
Yep.
So would that be 420 by 211 or 420 by?
420 by whatever. Because the client has the ability to upload whatever photos they want. As long as we've got 420 width, we're going to use an auto height to let the photos resize themselves. So I'll talk about that. What was the other thing I needed to address as well?
It was font, but how you.
How I did the web fonts. Okay. Okay, I don't want to forget. All right, so let's talk about cutting out some of these elements. This is how I do it. So, hey, Brent. Everything I deal with now is I only deal in paint now. Occasionally I'll use a GIF if I need something really small, or I know the colors and everything can change. But pretty much everything I cut now, I just cut a pane by default, and I use it. I use it because I use a lot of transparencies in my design now. So that's just what I do.
Yeah, but if
Eric's looking at me cross-eyed. Go ahead.
But if you aren't needing if you aren't needing transparency with it, the PNG file is going to be a lot bigger than the JPEG file.
You're absolutely right, and I don't care. So let me tell you how I cut out some of these
Steve ever
graphics.
told you that he's not an SEO expert?
So first thing I want to cut is the logo. Okay. This is the full-size logo, and it's going to be responsive, so the logo actually does stretch. It gets smaller as the page gets smaller. So I'm cutting this as a ping. What I do, this again, it's my process. What I do for this logo is, again, I'm using the move tool. I've deselected. I'm going to go ahead and select the logo, which I can see here. She's actually got a couple of layers she's using for the logo. Let me close this up. So she's got a folder here called logo, and she's got a couple of different layers that she's using to make up the logo. So what I do is I select her folder called logo, which has all those layers in it. I'm using Command E, which will compress all three of those things into one layer. Okay? Command E just basically got rid of all those things and put them into one layer. If you don't have a folder, any layers that you select, Command E will just flatten those into one layer. Okay? I'm doing a select all and a copy, make a new document, paste it, and I've got my logo ready to go. Okay? I want this to have a transparent background. I'm going to ignore Eric's advice. Do save for web, and I'm just going to save it as a PNG file.
For this type of file, where we have really sharp lines, it's better to use the PNG because you won't have artifacts. When we save it as JPEG, it's going to have artifacts. But for images, it's better to use JPEGs.
The images on the site are all JPEGs.
Right.
The images they upload are all JPEGs.
Right.
Absolutely. And again, we can get into I know all the pros and cons. We can get into a whole debate. It's not the right time or place. This is my process. It's my presentation. There's my logo ready to go. I'm going to save it as a PNG file, and we're going to use it. You're going to use it in a moment. I need these buttons as elements because I'm going to use those in my design. So again, I'm going to deselect. Using the control key, I can select it. There's my play button. So it's on its own layer, but she's used a couple of effects here. She's got a drop shadow and a stroke effect. I can't just copy this layer, or I'm going to lose the effects off the layer. Okay? So what I do is this. I create a new blank layer on top of it. I select the two layers, merge them using the Command E. Okay? Now I'll copy them, paste it into a document, and I've got my paint ready to go. You can see the transparency is held. So as long as you merge it into, basically you're flattening all those things. And I'm only flattening a blank layer and the layer with all the effects on it. It's going to hold those effects, merge it, and now you've got your thing ready to go. Okay? What I do on this one, because it's a circle and I want it centered, on this particular kind of image, I will measure out how far, it's off center because it's using a drop shadow. So I'll measure out the sides here. So it's, there's 4 off of this side and 4 off the bottom. So I'll actually change the canvas size on this image. We'll make it 55 by 56. Now it's centered. Okay, so because it had the drop shadow, it's off center. I know I want it centered on those images. So I've given it a little padding on the side so that the button itself is centered within the canvas. And that's how I say it. That's how I make those images. So now I can center this whole image, and it's truly a centered circle, even though the drop shadow is coming onto the bottom right. Okay, now it's ready to save for web. Making sense? Okay. So that's how I create image elements. Everything else I'll pretty much just be selecting, like I showed you, selecting fonts, selecting sizes, and I use the eyedropper tool quite a bit. So everything else I'm creating in CSS. I'll just say, okay, well this is gray, so there's the gray value that I need, or this is red. Quick trick is, rather than using the eyedropper, if you turn on the caps lock key, you get the, oh, mine's not working. Okay. Oh, there we go. You turn on the caps lock key, you'll get the crosshairs. So now I can get a little bit more accurate as to what I'm selecting. Right, so that's how I'm using Kieran's Photoshop documents to sort of cut out the elements that I need. I know I went over that real quick. Any questions on that?
That's great.
Okay. A lot of things, I will eyeball, I'll estimate from there. Not everything's going to be a one-to-one. Like she's got dashes here for these. I just skipped that. I just used solid gray. Because once I've looked at, okay, what it's going to take to create a dash versus solid gray, I didn't get.
What do you do when the client comes back and said, "Dude, I approved the dash"?
Then we fix it. Oh, our oversight. Sorry. Again, a lot of stuff. A lot of those little subtle things. I'll sort of make a judgment call as to whether we need to do that or not. Exactly. Are you talking about me?
Yeah, I'm just saying, there are times that I wish there was like a 10-second delay on all video broadcasts so I can back it, beat out some of the things.
Maybe you shouldn't additionally loaded questions like that. Look within, Jeff.
I do appreciate your radical transparency.
Something like this, we've got a double dash line here for what's surrounding the nav. I just use a CSS element for borders. So anywhere I can get away with quick CSS tricks, I'll do it. Just to kind of save all that file size that I'm spending on ping files.
Efficiency expert.
All right. Let's see if there's anything else on this page. A couple of little subtle things. I don't know if you can see it, but these sidebars, there's a dark gray here, but there's actually a light gray here behind. You can't really see on the screen, but this actually does have a dark gray back here on white. So there's white here and a dark gray here. So we actually have to look at those things as we're building out our CSS, because not all of the sidebar widgets are exactly the same. So as we're building this thing, we look at that. And actually, part of the conversation with this particular client was, well, we presented all these comps, and there were some inconsistencies in the sidebars. Now that we're getting into the development on this, let's see if we can make it more consistent throughout, so that we really only build this CSS once, and it does have a consistent look. So let's pick which direction we want to go. And the specific conversation we have with this client is which of the headers are going to pop best, so that people see those better. Let me find out what we went with. We actually went with a red. So we went with this. Ultimately, was a bordered header with a gray background and a red type, and then everything else is on white. And that's consistent throughout the site. That's how all the sidebars came out. So it wasn't exactly what we had in the Photoshop file, but as we built it, we got a little bit more consistent. Those are those 15 or 20% refinements that we do in code. This stuff's much easier to do in code than it is in Photoshop. There's no reason for Kieran to keep coming back and doing comps, because those things we can actually change on the fly. And when I'm showing these things to the client, we actually open up a screen share. I'll pop open Firebug, and we'll make those changes right in front of them, so they can say, oh, well, I like the red and I like the gray, and we actually show them those things live, so that we can make those decisions and just keep moving on with their day. It's much easier than representing.
Do you use for your screen share?
Go to Meetup.
Go to Meetup, yeah.
And that was actually that is specifically how we decided on these headers and some of these colors is, rather than setting up a version, having them send back comments, we just got on the phone for 45 minutes and said, okay, well, here's what these look like in red. Bless you. Let's see these, let's say we wanted these to be, blue or green or, whatever. You can do this stuff in Firebug, show them really quick, get them to sign off on the spot, and then you move on with your day. So that's how we do that stuff.
Steve, on the image elements, is that a featured image?
Yes.
And do you have a default?
No.
So they have to upload, or it doesn't have any images?
It doesn't have any images. They don't choose a feature image, there's no image. Is pizza here? Okay.
I have a Firebug question.
Yeah, Firebug.
In my Firebug, I have never been able to get it to do what yours is doing, and how in the heck are you doing that? Where it shows padding, and it shows the 3 values. Mine will say padding top, padding left, padding right, padding bottom. It breaks down. I can't get it to do that, because I don't want to see like a million things.
I don't know.
Show me.
Well, basically, that's
bring it up.
code.
Show me.
That's from the source,
So I figured
This is CSS?
Yeah, the CSS. The CSS
No, it's actually a Firebug setting.
It's a Firebug setting?
You have Firebug expand or non-expand, so.
Where, do you know where that is?
Yeah, it
No,
has to be.
I don't know where that is.
Yeah, because I can't get it to stop doing that, and it's not in my code.
I don't know where the Firebug settings are.
It's in the tools.
I'll figure it out, put it on
Where?
the.
Tools menu.
Thank you. See here, border left.
Web developer.
Border right. It breaks it. So I have like a ton of stuff
Okay.
instead of just the one thing.
You seeing it somewhere? I'm not. No?
Reset all Firebug options.
The options.
All right.
You fixed it.
Go forth and conquer, my child.
So can you tell us what you did?
I have to buy him a pony now.
My middle name is
What was the fix?
Yes.
What was the fix?
Actually, it's really innocuous. Bring up Firebug.
It's so silly. I feel really.
Yeah, just bring it up on the bottom there, so you can view everything. There you go. You can do it, Steve. I believe in you. So you see that little down arrow by the Style tab on the right? Click on it. And that's where she had checked expand shorthand properties.
I'm glad to hear Greg say that, because I was feeling really stupid. As soon as he did that, it was like, oh.
I never would have found that.
I knew it was something.
See what you can accomplish.
That's
If I did not have pants on, I would not have been able to find that.
I've been
Don't ask
wanting
me
to know
why.
that for 2 years. I've been wanting, in fact, Laura was saying, oh, yours is doing
Well, it's
that.
already
Mine
gave me
doesn't.
steroids.
So I mentioned that the site's responsive. So this is our first responsive site that we've ever launched. So this is the home page at full screen. With each of these modules, we actually have a full screen version and a responsive version of each of those little modules. And it was built specifically that way. So as I start to bring this screen in, you can see that this module will change. Okay, so there's full screen, and there's my snap point right there. So it actually it starts to stack all of the elements. So I've got the headline, the photo, the subhead, and the text underneath. They all will start to stack that way. And actually, it got rid of my 2 columns at the bottom as well. So my 2 columns actually stack on top of each other. It becomes one long column when I get to the iPad size.
It says I gotta go, but I gotta go.
down the phone size.
Phone size goes, it does a little bit more adjustment.
The logo is up.
Thank you so much.
The logo, well, you know, I'm logged in, so I'm not seeing exactly what, let me go to,
One of these things, it's really fun, right? You know, people that want to hear from you. You guys are crazy, huh?
the logo's an interesting one because we're dealing with a logo it's got some elements wrapped around it. Watch what happens when I get down to the snap point. The logo actually moves down and out of the way of the top elements on purpose because they start to squeeze in and they would overlap the logo. So we literally force it down a few pixels to get out of the way of those elements up top. The other thing that happens is, I'm seeing a bug now. This breaking down elements, those actually, they go away when I get down to the smaller sizes. So see there? Where they actually go is they go to the bottom of the page.
The Google stuff.
Over here. So they become more iPad-like buttons. So it actually, this breaking down bar appears when you get down to the smaller size. We're actually, the way we're doing this is we're actually, on the smaller size, we're hiding the one at the top and showing the one at the bottom. Where at the bigger sizes, we're showing the one at the top and hiding the one at the bottom. So we don't actually remove it, we just hide one and we just disable one. But you can see here, the breaking down goes away. It would normally be right here, but it goes away at the bigger size. Okay?
I have yet another question.
Yep.
Okay, this is about the CSS on the responsive.
Yep.
I've been working with a few of them, and it seems as though, and you correct me, because I just want to know what the consensus is, if there is one. It seems as though some people want to build their responsive style sheets from small device to large, and some people want to go from large to small. What do you find is the best way to go?
Well, small is actually what you want to consider first because small forces you to make some choices. To figure what are the most important elements. So that's what helps you determine what's going to be on top. So you actually do kind of want to build small out, but that's really just about making decisions. I actually when I'm building, I build big first and then I build the small one.
Right, but when you list them in the style sheet, you're going small first?
No, I'm going big first and then small at the bottom. Okay, so let's look at some style sheet stuff.
No, I can't decide.
Everybody see that? Okay, that's good. Okay. So I based this on, I use empty canvas as my starting theme. I've mentioned this several times in the past. So empty canvas is a good starting theme. It's got a reset CSS sheet in there, so that'll clear out all the sort of default CSS. There's plenty of reset CSS style sheets that are available on the web if you're just building a theme from scratch. So web fonts, I forgot who asked me about web fonts. This is where I'm declaring all of my fonts. So if you have a web-ready font, in CSS, you declare it at the top, and that makes it available in the rest of your CSS. So I'm giving it a name. The font that we're using for the headline is called Hackensack. So I've given it the name Hackensack Regular, and you're going to see it referenced in the headline styles shortly. So that's how you initiate a web font. Most web fonts, if you buy them, I forget where we bought these from, will actually come with this style sheet as part of the font. So you really just copy and paste it into you don't have to guess at these. What's important on these though is this. So I've actually put all my fonts into a specific folder in my theme. This folder has to be right. So it's got to know where to find the font within your theme or it's not going to display it. So these things become important and when you buy the font, it's not going to be there by default. What's the matter?
I was wondering, why are some of these headlines different?
It's their choice, actually. They have the choice in WordPress as to whatever color they want to make a headline. But we give them red and black, or they can do any color. Not my choice.
Hot pink.
Okay, so declare your fonts up front when you're using non-standard fonts. Again, these have to be web-ready fonts, and there's not many of them, but you're starting to see more and more pop up. And that's actually a consideration for your designer, or if you are a designer, you don't want to design with just any font. because there might not be a web-ready version of that font, and then you're going to have to show the client something different. So you actually kind of want to find some of the web-ready fonts if you're using a non-standard font. Use those first so that you're not making it become.
So web-ready is different from web-safe.
Web-safe is that handful of fonts
Yeah.
like Arial and Times, and Papyrus. I don't know. I don't remember which one. Palatino. Impact. Impact is a pretty popular web-safe font. What's that?
Comic Sans.
Comic Sans is a good one.
And just because it's you have a true type font doesn't necessarily mean
Nope.
it's web ready.
Nope.
Because lots of people have true type fonts, so they throw them up there and they look like crap.
I think Font Squirrel.
Yes.
Yes.
Font
It's a
Squirrel,
nice
yes.
Font Squirrel is a good one. Are those free?
There's a lot of free ones. Not all of them are, but a lot.
So
of
again, these are web-ready fonts that you can download and use on your website. Not all fonts are created the same, and not all licenses are created the same. So the license will tell you how much you're able to use the font. So take that into consideration as you're presenting this to your client. Yes.
Those you don't upload to your server. You just call them from there, right?
No, these you have to upload to your server. So this,
I've used it, well.
there are some that you can use on Google that you don't upload to your
Yeah,
server.
but I thought I'd use these without.
But you can see in my theme, I actually have the fonts here ready to go. So there's my Hackensack font. So that's actually part of the website.
And there's a couple of services that you run in the JS file and they do the same thing.
Okay. Looking down my CSS, one of the things that's important is in the body is you establish a default font size. Some browsers are going to be 16. I just default everything at 14. That's just my base font size. That way, when I'm working on percentages, I know what my base size is that I'm going off of. Okay? We're going to look at percentages in a minute, but you do need to declare this at the start of your style sheet as to what your base size is, because each browser it might be a little bit different if you don't do this.
Why are you not using M's?
I am.
Oh.
I will in a minute. Okay. And M's I have a little bit of fear on, and this might be a bit irrational. But M's again is going to pick up whatever the browser is set to. So if somebody's changed their default font size in the browser, M's is going to pick that up. So I declare a pixel size to start. That's the only PX you're going to see in my style sheet. Everything else is based off of percentage.
I thought that's where you started to like scale everything, but.
I do.
Okay.
That's my base size.
Oh, okay, so it's like your reset.
It is my reset.
Okay.
Yeah. So I'm saying, okay, 14 is where I'm starting everything. Okay? This is 6.42857M. Okay? How did I get there? This is where Firebug comes incredibly handy. Is I'll look at the computed size. Okay? So I know I need, where we ended up with Hackensack is earlier when we looked at the Photoshop file, it was 120, but that was on Helvetica Black. We're not using that, we're using Hackensack now. So we actually need, what I did to figure out this font size, I got on a screen share with my designer, and we actually went through a couple different sizes. Once we set on Hackensack, shit, okay, that's the font size. So what we needed to know is, okay, what's the font size going to be at full screen? And it was 90 was what we settled on, so 90 points. So the way I figured this out is this really important Mac tool called the calculator. Okay? 90. They don't have this on PCs. 90 divided by 14, 6.487514. Okay? You actually need all of those numbers when you're doing responsive. Okay, so it's only showing a few of them in Firebug, but all of those, that whole number string matters to get to 90 pixels, whatever. So what I do is I'll actually copy that out of the calculator. Let's go back to my style sheet, which was 947. There it is.
Yikes.
So that whole number string matters, and you can copy right out of the calculator, paste it in. But you're not going to get to exactly 90 without all of those numbers, and that's very important when it comes to responsive design.
What did you divide it by again?
What's that?
What did you divide it by?
14, which is my base. So I did 90 divided by 14 was that number. That, again, I know I'm right because Firebug tells me so. And that's the computed tab is what's important there, because you can see here, font size 90 pixels. It's actually working out the math for you. Because math is hard. Okay? So I don't have to go through every single one, but that's how I'm getting my font sizes into place in my responsive design, is by going literally through each size in that Photoshop document, calculating it versus 14, which is my base, and then putting it into my style sheet. Now there's a caveat, okay? Your percentage is going to pick up whatever div is containing that piece that you're working on. So if that headline happens to be inside of a div that's already setting a font percentage, it's going to pick that up. Okay? So you might not be always working off of your base. And you can use Firebug to figure out what the current base is, like this. So let's say I just wanted to see what the base is on this 90. Okay? I'll go into Firebug and say, you know what? Show me what 1M is. Okay? Okay, good. 14. I know I'm working off of my base. Okay? That's how you can see if this is picking up something from a containing div. I don't know if we're going to see any here, but again, okay, this one's 40. Again, I'm going to go into Firebug and set it at 1M. Oops. Still at 14. Okay, that's how you can see whatever CSS thinks that base size is. And if it's different than 14, you can look at what the containing divs are, because maybe you've set a percentage somewhere that you didn't mean to, and that's how I look at that stuff. So I'll use Firebug to kind of switch back and forth and check it. Did that make sense? I'm seeing a lot of blank stares. Okay. Same thing goes for body copy. So one of the things that we ended up discussing with them was this was originally sans serif font that we were using here. And we had some additional spacing that they didn't like. So while we're on a screen share with them, again, I picked up one of the paragraph tags. And I said, all right, well, let's look at a little bit larger line height, 1.75. So let's look at the leading there. That's not right. Okay, well let's look at 1.7. And we started to sort of play with these things. One of the other things you can do is I don't have to type this in. I can use the arrow keys to sort of go up and down with Firebug. It's really handy stuff. And we ended up selling on 1.5. The margin is at 15, but let's say we wanted a higher margin. I'm just using the arrow keys here to sort of scale that up and down. And again, I'll just hop on a screen share with the client. It doesn't have to be anything formal. I'll just call them and say, I'm working on this. Would you mind looking at this with me? Does this feel right? Does this feel wrong? And then we're done. Move on with our day. And these tools are really handy. Okay? Oh, the other aspect you need to consider with responsive design is, Kat asked me about height, image height. So they have the ability to upload whatever size images they want, right? Because there's no fixed, we don't say, okay, you have to use this size image. They're going to be finding images from all over the web. So this particular one was 540 by 423, okay? In the style sheet, though, we've told it width is 100% because we want it 100% of the containing div that it's in. Height is always set to auto. Okay, that's the responsive CSS trick for dealing with images. So if your height is auto, it's going to pick up the right proportional height for whatever width you've set it to. Okay, and what happens here is when I go into responsive mode and start to bring this in so we get rid of the sidebar, see that the image gets really big. Because I'm on auto height, it's always the right proportion no matter what size I'm at. And that's how to do it, is height equals auto. Does that make sense, Kat? A lot of this stuff comes from that book, Responsive Web Design. I think that's the actual title of the book. these tricks I just picked up right out of that book.
By the way, Steve, those arrow keys in the Firebug also work in the Chrome developer tools.
Okay. All right, let's talk about some, let's see if I missed anything. I think I hit the basics of sort of how we convert the Photoshop documents over to CSS. Let's talk about some of the WordPress features that we built for this. So, we wanted, on this particular site, we gave them a lot of free reign over different choices with each of the stories. I'm not going to change anything here because I actually am on the live site. Remember I talked about each of those story blocks? Well, they actually have a name for each of those story blocks. So if they're in a featured story, these are their names they gave us. It's just what they use within their edits, A1, A2, when they want the photo on the left or right. We built that right into a meta box in the post. So if they're sending this as a featured post, they choose their own naming convention, and it changes that layout for them. And we actually, this is I credit Jeff Zinn with this. Thank God he taught me this trick. We're actually using template parts for each of those boxes. So get template part is a really easy way to manage this stuff. So we're actually pulling that in from the meta field, plugging it in as a get template part, and we're literally just calling them those template parts A1 or A2 within our theme. Does that make sense? Yeah, I know.
That's a good one.
I'm a thinker. Let's see if I've got a sample of that. There it is. So get template part. You basically plug in two parts of the template. It's sort of the first part called this content. Second part is feature A2. You saw what I named it in the theme. So that's how I'm pulling those little content blocks in. A2 left and right, or I'm using this thing called featured style, where we actually have tapped into WordPress for their format. So we're using three formats, either standard, image, or video. So they know whether one of those content blocks is going to be an image block or if it's going to contain a video. So we're actually using the built-in WordPress formatting to dictate what content part we want. Okay, so we're, again, just using some of the built-in WordPress tools, tapping into it, and pulling those little content blocks. And the only difference between each of these is really just what sort of media what kind of media we're pulling in. Most of them are the same. But I really credit Jeff Zinn for I picked this up when he gave the talk on template parts here. Okay. We are using featured images throughout, so if they set a featured image, we do pick that up and we use that in those different spots within those story blocks. If they don't set a featured image, then we just don't have an image for that story. It's a text story at that point. So that's how we're dictating whether there's an image or not. So they have the ability to upload images, set something as a featured image, or pull it out if they want. And the block is actually smart enough to reformat itself whether it's got an image or not. Again, I'm not going to change anything here because I'm on the live site. I didn't say anything. The last thing we're doing, and we wrote this custom, we've done this for all of these news sites, is the way that they order the stories within those columns. They have full control over that. Again, I'm not going to click on any of these, but this lets them add the post to each of those areas. I did write this custom. This is not a plugin. Okay. So these boxes here, these buttons here, they say, okay, I've written this post. Now I want to put this in as a featured post, which is that top spot on the home page. Or I want this to go in column 1, which is that bottom left spot. Okay. Once they clicked at one of these buttons, it takes them over to story ordering. And again, I don't want to mess with this too much, but they're able to go in and change the order of the stories around within each of those spots. Because that's how
Is that a plugin you made?
I based it, I did make this plugin, but I based it off of some other scripts that we found. But here's,
That's part of
you can't have that.
It's part of Sortable, the jQuery Sortable.
We're not using this. This is actually using prototype, but we have written this in with the jQuery sortables. We've written a prototype, another version of this.
Okay.
So because we've had this plugin for a while in prototype, we just sort of picked it up and from some other sites and we repurposed it. But these are the 5 areas that can be ordered, and that's how we're controlling that story ordering on the home page and within some of the widgets.
And each one of those home.com 1, home.com 2, are those categories, or how did you?
No, we actually we have a separate database table that we're pulling those into. So, and we do that on purpose. We don't because this particular thing can be a little bit cumbersome, and we want this to be indexed. We pulled it out as a separate database table. We're only really just using numbers. So we wanted indexing to be very fast on this. So we did that on purpose.
Can you hide it from certain users?
Can you hide what?
That ordering.
Story ordering? Actually, it is. This is only available at the editor level. Editor and up. So I'm an admin, so I'm seeing it. But yeah, contributors don't see this. And that's just because we're basically saying only show this tab to 7 and up. Yeah.
Curious, is there a sticky feature version?
We're not tapping into sticky on this, but we have used sticky for some other stuff on Daily Cog. Let's see if I have anything else here.
The content blocks is a custom post type thing.
Content blocks is a plugin. Yeah. Let me go over a couple other meta blocks. Remember we talked about headline color? So we give them by default red or black, which is colors that we've chosen, or they can put in a custom hex value if they want a different headline color. We have let's see if they have any related stories here. This is a related stories block that we wrote. And again, this is how they're driving. It's these stories here, although they don't have a bunch going on right now. They have the ability to stack a bunch of related stories in this area, and they're controlling them through this box. And again, this works just like the story ordering, so you have the ability to enter them and drag these stories around within this window. So that's how they're controlling those related headlines. I think that was it for custom meta boxes. Oh, this one, we call this landing page elements and homepage elements. They have the ability to, by default, these are all checked on. They have the ability to say, I don't want an author box in the story, or I don't want a subhead, and it just turns off those elements. And the CSS is smart enough to sort of adjust the story as it needs to, whether those elements are on or not. So we've given them a fair amount of control on the back end for each of these stories, and it's enough customization where they can make each story look a little bit different. They can't break anything. And that's sort of what's most important here. And the worst they can do is put up some weird, funky purple headline, but that's up to them. If they want to do that, that's fine. Maybe they're writing a story about Prince. I don't know. Content blocks was a plugin, and we're using this specifically for what are we using this for? Oh, this is for one of the widgets. So one of the widgets, they want to be able to change this at will. And rather than writing something custom, this plugin did this specific feature. So we're only using it for this one widget. We can always add other content blocks later, but this stuff literally feeds into this widget right there, required reading. So that just gives them a post area to adjust this as they want. The reason we use this one in particular is they're able to not have everything be a link. They can control each of these headlines, whether they want a link or not, or only part of it be a link. They can do it in a very WordPress manner. So that's why we're using that content block. It's only for that particular widget.
And that's per story, or is just?
No, that's just a
page?
widget that's appearing on every page.
Okay.
Yeah.
For the generic.
Yeah. Freedom Mail, we're using MailChimp for this. So we actually use the MailChimp plugin, and then we just did custom CSS around what MailChimp's already providing. So this is all just, it's actually standard MailChimp, and we're using CSS to overwrite the look of that box. That's all we're doing there. I talked about these little elements here, these play buttons. So each of these play buttons, we're actually drawing in that play button image, and we're just centering it on the thumbnail. So we're literally writing it into the div, and by using position absolute, we're just positioning it where we want it over the image. So they can, again, we're just using a featured image there, using the thumbnail size of it, and we're putting in the play button. So that's how we're sort of cheating there. That way they don't have to make an image with the play button on it. It saves them time. And again, by using a transparent ping, even though Eric doesn't like it, we're able to do it that way. I don't know where you went.
And that's basically, they would show the play button only if the story is a video.
These particular stories are in the video category. Actually, they're set as a video post format. Right. So we're pulling the latest videos, and we're pulling them into this widget, and then just putting that play button over it to indicate that it's a video.
Did you create the bulk widget?
Yeah, created that from scratch. Feed is just a Twitter feed, and we're specifically just calling a very specific Twitter search. It's just an aggregate of a few users that they've pulled in to create this feed, and then all we've done here is we're just using a Twitter widget. I really hope I don't change anything by accident. We're using it. Actually, I'm sorry. I did write this widget. So we took a Twitter plugin that did most of what we wanted, and we added this ability to just add whatever authors they want in there. Then we just aggregate all of those, do a search, and put it in the widget. I think that's most of it. So I know I covered a lot. Any questions? Yeah.
I was just looking at my this responsive template I was using, and I noticed that this is back to the responsive M's. I just noticed that they were using something called REM as opposed to
Were they
M.
sleeping while they're doing that?
What? No. But
somebody got that.
Yeah. I've had a beer, so I'm a little slow. But actually, I found an article on it, and I posted it on the OCWP. But it looks like they're using this REM instead.
I've never heard of it.
I know, me neither. It was a template I bought at Steamforce that I didn't realize it was using it until I just looked at it in Firebug.
Yeah, I don't know what it is. Anybody know what that?
It's a responsive M.
A responsive M. Okay.
Has nothing to do with the band.
Never heard of it. Responsive M? No?
Yeah. I posted an article.
Okay.
So I'll have to go back and read it.
Yeah, I think I covered everything that I wanted to cover. We are using a couple of specific templates for pages within their site. Nothing real special here. Using template name, we're just specifying like this page called masthead. We have some custom functionality that's just automatically pulling in their authors and pulling in the gravatars for their authors. So that's why we've used this template there. So that template has specific logic in it to pull in authors, and we've given them the ability inside of their user profiles to basically order the authors how they want to on that pizza. Okay, pizza's here. Let's break and then we'll come back and Jason will be ready. But let's take 10 minutes and eat some pizza. Thank you, Brandon.